I was brought up in a little village in Ruddington. My dad was a policeman, my mum a hairdresser. I've got a sibling, Lizzie. We had a really happy life, went on holidays. My dad worked long hours, obviously being a policeman, but my childhood was amazing. Went to school locally. Then when I went to senior school, I did go to a different senior school than my friends, but I had lots of friendship groups from all different areas. Was a popular girl in school, but my childhood was what any child would wish for. So obviously once I'd left school, I went to college and I worked as an accountant for a big company. I used to like to go out and enjoy myself like anyone did. But around 2000, I just bought a property. My grandma died very suddenly in a hit and run accident. And then within that year, I also lost a child. I started drinking more heavily, but it didn't seem to be a problem at the time because I had no children. You know, we went out and enjoyed ourselves, me and my partner at the time. I did then have a child in 2002, and not long after having her, I started to drink a lot more, but I had this big fear that she was going to die, which relates back to obviously losing a child. I went to get help from the doctors who said, well, we don't feel you've got a problem. But I did go to an abstinence group, which did help. For 6 weeks I didn't drink, but then I had one drink, which led to probably drinking more, and most nights I would have a drink. I then fell pregnant again with my second child, which pregnancy fine, no issues, didn't really drink through the pregnancy, had the odd Guinness because my mother-in-law at the time had told me it was good for babies. But then not long after having him, the doctor did diagnose me with postnatal depression, which I didn't believe I had. I believed I had a drink problem, but they didn't think that. So I'd had Marcus, and then the drinking increased. Me and my partner at the time were then deciding that we were going to go our separate ways, and we put our house up for sale. And I fell pregnant with my third child. How it happened, I do not know, a drunken night. So I had my third child, and it was after that, so around about 2006, that I then was drinking every single day, and I couldn't get through the day without a drink. All I'd wait for is to finish work to be able to go and have a drink. And I ended up in a relationship with someone that drank as well. So it wasn't an issue because we both drank, but there was a big issue there, and I couldn't get help. But I functioned daily by going to work and waiting for my next drink. I stole, I did anything to get money because what I was earning wouldn't feed my habit either. My parents were always there to support me and really tried to get me help and would come and talk to me, and I'd say I'm never going to have another drink. As soon as they'd leave, I'd be straight at the shop to buy a drink. Then the father of my children wouldn't allow me to have the children on my own because obviously drink was an issue. And prior to us splitting up, my daughter at the age of 4 ended up having to phone her grandparents to say, I can't wake my mummy up, when her dad was out. So the period of me having the problem had gone on for nearly 8 years before I actually got help. I was an awful person, awful. I didn't care about my kids. You know, one day it'd be, right, I'm going to go and see the kids, but drink came in the way, and I'd drink instead of going to see them, or I'd have one drink that leads to two. I'd go to see them, and my mum and dad and their dad was like, you're not seeing them. They were the bad people though, not me. Why weren't they letting me see them? I couldn't understand it at all because I didn't see that it was an issue really, because I was always drunk. Life became really, really difficult. and I was in a relationship with somebody that I didn't want to be with, but we drank together. It became the norm. And then in about 2007, just before Christmas, I phoned my dad. I said, I need help. Obviously, he'd heard this several times and tried to help me. And just after the Christmas, I moved back in with my parents and went to the doctors. And I was quite lucky because the receptionist knew my family, knew me from growing up. And she actually spoke to the doctor and said, she does need help. I know what's been going off. And I got a referral to go into the Priory. That was in about the January time, but then I had to wait on a waiting list. My dad was going to pay for me to go in, but I didn't want him to because I thought if it doesn't work. So I went on a waiting list where in the period of time that I had to wait to go into the Priory, my dad had to feed my habit because by this time in the May I finished working due to drink. I couldn't hold my job down any longer because I was drunk at work and I was looking after people with learning disabilities. I had no thought for them at the time. It was feeding my habit. I used to go to the Priory every Tuesday to meetings and then in the June I got a phone call to say that I'd got a bed, which on the 26th of June I went into the Priory, which was the best thing ever. The thing that motivated me to change was obviously over the years I'd tried to get help, but it was the Christmas prior to going into the Priory. I couldn't see my children on Christmas Day, but the thing that broke me was I couldn't even afford to buy them a present. They didn't have any presents off their mum for Christmas because I spent it on drink. And it was just after that Christmas that I realised I need to sort my life out and wanted to sort my life out. It was probably the first time that I did want to sort my life out. I'd said it so many times, but it was mainly to keep people off my back so that I could carry on living the life I was. So then obviously I went into the Priory. The lead up, as I've said before, going into the Priory was the meetings, and then the day I went into the Priory, I was overwhelmed. I wanted to be there. I'd packed a suitcase. My sister had bought me all new clothes, so I looked decent because I was about 5 stone, had not ate for months. And the first thing they did was take my mouthwash off me, and I couldn't understand why. But it was because it got alcohol in it. Well, I wasn't going to drink it. I'd never even thought of that, but obviously people do. And then had 4 days in the Priory where I was like on the, I suppose, clinical setting where I was, well, my first day in there, I arrived at 8:30 in the morning and I had to wait until about 7 o'clock at night to be given any drugs because the doctor had to come to prescribe me lithium. And I remember sitting with a lady called Sam that was the chef there, and I said, I'm dying. I couldn't keep still. I was shaking, obviously withdrawing, and it was the worst thing ever. I then was prescribed the lithium, and the first 2 nights I was in a room on my own and settled in, and I remember seeing a lady coming up the drive. She got loads of hair missing, and I thought, oh gosh, she looks poorly, obviously not realising how poorly I was. And I went into my room that night, which was a double room, and this lady was there. I went into the bathroom where I'd put all my toiletries all nice, and she'd been sick all over them. And I thought, oh my God, and I went and got some help. Anyway, that night, although I was in exactly the same boat as her, I thought, God, what if she kills me in the night? I'd got all these horrible thoughts going through my head, as she was obviously very poorly like I was. But we became the bestest friends, and we worked together through our journey really in the Priory, and I met some amazing people from all walks of life, and the counselling that we had, I went in there not really knowing what to expect, and when you're doing your counselling sessions, you don't realise how much you get from that by talking, by being open and listening to other people's stories. Whilst in there, we went to AA meetings and NA meetings, and I'll be honest, I found the NA meetings more helpful for me. The AA meetings though, the first AA meeting I ever went to, there was a 30-year-old girl that stood up to talk, and she said that she'd been to Ibiza on holiday. She'd been dry for 6 years, and she said it was the best holiday she'd ever had. She partied till 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and from that I looked at her and I thought, that's going to be me, which today it is. Whilst I was in the Priory, they make people leaders of the group, and I became a leader 2 weeks before I came out. And you support obviously the new people that come in and help them. A lot of people thought I worked in the Priory at this stage, as I am a very caring person, and obviously I was feeling a lot better and I was determined. I knew that this programme was going to work for me, or hoped it'd work. But on the last day before I came out the Priory, all your family can come on, you're like passing out, not parade, but like do. And one of the counsellors said, we didn't think you'd make the first night. And I said, what, did you think I was going to walk out? And he said, no, we thought you'd be dead. And that to me is, I was bad, but I didn't realise how bad my addiction was, or I suppose the person that I had been through addiction. I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about life, and how to move forward within my life from that.
Fantastic.
After I came out of the Priory, I met somebody that was in the Priory at the same time as me. I moved to Manchester, which I moved myself away from my environment, which was drink. Not because I thought that I would go back to drinking, but it's all the advice you're given along the way to keep yourself away from things that are associated from your past. But doing that, I ended up in a relationship with an addict who carried on using. I wasn't aware that he was using cocaine initially, but then realised he was. So I was living a sober life that I'd always wanted, but a very unhappy life for at least 7 years. Being woke up in the night because he can hear things, because he's been taking cocaine. A narcissistic relationship where everything was my fault. At no point did I go back to drink, but I was very, very unhappy. My life in 2017, when I moved back to Nottingham, is probably when I started living my life again, even though I've been sober since 2008. I was living a horrible life again, but just sober. And it was hard. My relationship with my children at that time had grown, but they didn't want to be around him, and I didn't want them around him. So everything was distance. We couldn't do anything as a family. But in 2017, when I moved back, I realised that I'm worth more, and I've kicked my habit, and hopefully will continue to kick the habit, and no one deserves to be treated the way I had been then for the last 7 years. And my life began in 2017. I learned about myself that I am a very strong person. I'm a caring person, and I was worth more than I thought I was. I was in the pits. I didn't have friends. I had associates that I drank with, who I believed to be friends, but I learnt that I have a lot of friends, a lot of people that cared for me, and that I could carry on a life of love, happiness, and get to where I wanted to be in life. During the process, I'd hurt so many people by what I'd done, and I wanted to make things better for them as well. But one thing I did learn, which might sound really strange because they say that we're selfish because we drink, we don't care. I learned to be selfish as well, to look after myself first, which I'd never done. I always looked after everybody else. I was always the one there to help everyone else, but not myself. So moving forward in my path and life of recovery, I am quite a selfish person. I do put myself first because I have to keep myself sober. I learned to love again. I learned to build a relationship with my children. My children were 5, 3 and 1 when I went in the Priory. My 5-year-old and 3-year-old at the time, they'd seen what their mum was like. They were, when I came out the Priory, they were frightened to stay with me. The thought of if I drank and what they had seen growing up, there was never any violence or anything, but I learned to build a relationship with them again, with my parents, my sister, who obviously were the closest people to me. I built a relationship back up with my children's father. Even though we're not together, we've got a really good relationship, which has helped my children to grow to who they are today. So I would say one of the most important things to me, what I learnt was to look after myself first. I think one of the hardest things about addiction and looking back when I was drinking was the upset it caused for my family and the things I did. And I always remember my dad, my partner at the time, phoning my dad and saying, please can you come, she's drinking. And my dad coming and sitting down with me and actually crying and saying, please don't have another drink, please don't go and get another drink tonight. And he went out the front door and I went out the back door and brought a bottle of wine. And that isn't what a normal person would do, that love their parents and love their kids. And I did love my parents, I did love my kids, but the addiction had took over me and I couldn't stop that. I caused misery, but at no point did my mum or my dad turn their backs on me. They were there for me throughout my journey and still are to today. They will always help me, and I think that's one thing that helped me in my recovery, was that I had so much support from my mum and dad, my ex-partner and my sister. And if it wasn't for them, in one sense, I wouldn't have ever probably got in the Priory. I believe that if they'd possibly turned their backs on me, I might not be here today. I believe that what I needed most was that extra support there to help me. I had been to the doctor several times and been told, well, we don't think you've got a problem. You still go to work, you're still functioning. I had a problem, but the support wasn't there. And I needed that extra bit to help me to stop. I couldn't do it on my own, but I couldn't get what I needed, which I did finally get, which was the Priory and the counselling sessions. And I think being around other people that had got worse problems than me, really. I'd had a good upbringing. I'd had everything I wanted, and listening to other stories and being able to talk to people. I could talk to my mum and dad, but I couldn't be as open as I probably would want to be, but I could be in the Priory and get the help. So today I've got an amazing family. I've got 3 beautiful children that I adore. Not really children anymore though, 21, 19 and 17. We've got an amazing relationship. I've got a partner that I adore, and we look after each other. A really good relationship with my mum and dad. But from my journey of coming out of the Priory, I had worked in care previously, and I became a registered manager of 3 units in Manchester for people with learning disabilities, mental health, and drug and alcohol addiction. And I managed these units, which, me coming from the Priory and having an addiction, I could help people. I couldn't change people, but I could help them, which meant so much to me, to give back what people had given to me. I moved back to Nottingham because I'd been in Manchester in 2017 and continued working with people with mental health issues. And then in 2020, I've moved on to work for a company where we support people in the community, elderly people with domiciliary care, and then we have 24-hour packages to support people, which, yes, I am the manager and I work in the office, but I go out in the field as well and work with the clients, which I love. I love doing. I love supporting people. We've recently had a client that came out of hospital, who I went to on his initial visit, who has had an alcohol problem and is still living with the addiction. But I'm very open about my problems, and when he told me, I said, oh, I've been dry for 16 years. And he couldn't believe it because I'm the manager of a company that's supporting him. But I've managed to help him in a sense because he can be open. He decided to take a private care package with us, and we're still supporting him today. And he will phone me whenever he's got any problems. Yes, he's still having a drink, but not to the excess that he was. And I've rebuilt my life. I own my own home. I've got a good job. I've got a good family, and I'm happy. Plans for the future. So where I currently work is obviously with the elderly. I would love to try and support people with addiction. That is my aim, to go into working with people with addiction, because I've been there. I know what they're going through. And I'd love to be able to, even if it's just one person I could help that person. I talk to people, everyone knows about my issues that I've had. But if I could try and get into working with people with addiction, that is my aim for the future.